Welcome into this edition of the Milwaukee Bucks on Tap podcast. Corey Moen, Evan Byrne. Evan, how are we doing?
Not too bad. We're obviously NBA season still going on, but we're in the baseball mindset right now.
We're in the baseball mindset right now. We're in the March Madness mindset right now.
A lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, which admittedly, I think for a lot of people, the Bucks have kind of taken the back burner at this point in the season. With March Madness going on for the next couple weeks, it's going to be like, oh shit, the Bucks have a game tonight. That's how it was for me. You kind of forget that they played last night against Sacramento.
All these late games, their West Coast trip.
Yeah, and again, it's going to be kind of it's going to be one of those things where, Milwaukee hasn't had Lisa Byington for the past couple games because, obviously she does the NCAA tournament. So you have guys like Dave Kane fill in, Marcus Johnson. Melvin Ricks is still there, but it's kind of the point in the season where it's you're just kind of looking forward to the playoffs. Teams are still very much vying for prime seeding. I think if you're a Bucks fan, you want to try to avoid facing off against the Indiana Pacers, but at this point, you just really want to be healthy. Giannis is, like I said, especially Milwaukee's got to have Giannis this year. You just hope Giannis kind of stays healthy heading into the postseason, because if he doesn't, Milwaukee's got no shot. You kind of saw what it was last year without him. Dame kind of got hurt halfway through, and then it was just a wrap. So you just hope that everybody kind of remains healthy throughout the year. So you're going to see a lot of players resting, sitting out. You kind of saw Dame for the past couple games, sitting out with a soleus strain. So, I mean, you just want Milwaukee to kind of remain as healthy as possible heading into the postseason run. So, to kind of kick off the podcast, we were going to talk about Milwaukee's loss, national television, against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Game really wasn't all that close.
No.
Oklahoma City is leaps and bounds better than Milwaukee. And, Evan, for me, I think what the concern is that Milwaukee just hasn't fared well against the top teams, especially in the Western Conference. And you saw, and I think what makes this Thunder team so lethal is that they could hit you in a multitude of different directions, right? So as you go to last Sunday's game, it's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 31. But for him, his game is so smooth, you don't even realize they had 31 points. Because he, to me, is kind of he reminds me a lot of DeMar DeRozan. Of a lot of his work, a lot of the way he makes his money is in the mid-range area. And he can draw fouls, and his game is just so quiet, and it's so smooth. Then all of a sudden, you just look, and it's just he has 25 already. It's such a quiet 25 that there's there's really nothing on his 25 points that are flashy, right? It's just I'm going to go to work. You're not going to stop me. And, this is exactly what I'm going to do. There was nothing from those 25, those 31 points that I even remotely remember. It's just you look and all of a sudden, wow, he's cooking us. And obviously SGA is very much on the precipice of winning his first MVP award. I think he deserves it. I think he's been the best player this year. So kind of tell me what your thoughts are on Milwaukee's loss to Oklahoma City.
Right from the start, especially just in that first half in general, you knew it was kind of game over. Their first half was atrocious, only scoring 15 points in the second quarter, which isn't going to do you a lot. Their second half wasn't bad, but they just gave up 39 in the third quarter, so just really no way of clawing back from this game, especially being down 25 at one point. Only lost by 16, but still 25-point deficit. Hard to kind of come back to, especially with some of the teams that you're playing against. But no, it was really the Giannis and Dame show, and then some other guys chipped in. But nothing really stuck out for me, I think, on the Bucks side outside of spoiling a Giannis triple-double, 21, 12, and 10. a couple blocks too, but no, it was just they were making more shots than us. Bucks really couldn't find a way to keep it competitive, especially in that second quarter. Again, where they only scored 15 points, but I think their biggest hit was the 3 point, 13 of 34. Still 38%, not too bad, but just a lot of guys throwing up zeros. Torian Prince, Brooke Lopez, um, Andre Jackson too. Why was he shooting a three? I have no idea, but just one of those games we're kind of going into. I'm like, it's either going to be a close game or an absolute blowout. And for 90% of the game, it was a blowout. So nothing really caught my eye. Expected this kind of going into it. It was kind of going on when we were recording the last one, but no, just letting Hartenstein cook us in the paint. He had a double double, almost shot 100%, 11 from 15 against Shea. Not the best shooting game wise, but can get to the foul line. Still shot 40%. But then you got a lot of their role players. Isaiah Joe putting in 19, Alex Caruso 10. A lot of guys 9 to 15 ish. But just an inevitable game where just kind of going into it, I knew the Bucks weren't going to do anything.
Yeah, and especially those two players, like Isaiah Joe and Hartenstein, those two were the biggest factors in that game because Isaiah Joe just could not miss with three, like just hitting threes. I forgot. I honestly forgot what his percentage was on the game against Milwaukee. I think
5 and 9.
What was it?
5 for 9, so about 56%.
So, and Hartenstein, that hook shot that he has in the paint, lethal.
Yep.
Like that.
It's like a Robin Lopez. He just tosses it up.
That high arcing hook shot, like nobody, like that was so unguardable. Don't forget about Chet Holmgren. He chipped in 16 points, but I think, and again, for me right now, Oklahoma City is like a really good regular season team, but as well as I do that teams are going to gear up to stop SGA.
Yep.
So my question is, I think to make it far in the playoffs, you got to have other guys make shots. And, they got solid players around SGA, but, like, I don't know if there's necessarily a second I mean, I guess Chet Holmgren could be. But he's also, missed all of his rookie year due to a foot injury. But, is Chet Holmgren, like, is he your second star? Like, you got to have, like, to win in this league, win a championship, you got to have like two stars, and like that's my biggest concern for OKC. It's just like, yeah, they got a solid team. SGA is really good, but once teams gear up to stop SGA, then it's like, who else do you got? Like, who else can you look to be like, that's the guy who's going to like make a difference?
Mm-hmm.
But goddamn, they got some solid players. They got some solid, unheralded players. Like, unless you're a basketball sicko, you'd probably be able to name Chet Holmgren and SGA, but, the rest of those guys, it's like, who are they?
You're not throwing out Case and Wallace unless you're a Thunder fan.
Yeah, no, you're not. Like, Isaiah Joe, like, I never heard of Isaiah Joe, like, before. But all of a sudden, he's cooking us. Just couldn't. Now, granted, that's
how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it goes with not the randoms, but the guys you least expect it.
Yeah, and like a lot of it could be Milwaukee was also like mentally like shot. I mean, they had just played the night before. I believe it was against the Pacers.
Mm-hmm.
So then you got to play a Saturday night to a Sunday game. It's just like, and against a really good Thunder team. That would have been a tall task for Milwaukee to win that game. And again, they just did the same thing like the week before that, where they had to face off against Cleveland after played a game like the night before. So it's really, really tough just to be asking them to do that, especially against top teams in their respective conferences. So, tough loss for Milwaukee. 121 to 105. Moving on, this is going to kind of start the Bucks West Coast trip. did not get off to a good start. They lost 104-93 to the Golden State Warriors. Warriors did not have Steph Curry in that game.
Yep.
That did not seem to matter. At one point in the third, Milwaukee took a 6-point lead. Somehow ended up down by 2. And, and this game was extremely frustrating because I think Milwaukee had chances.
Yeah.
The Warriors especially turned the ball over like a crap ton in the third quarter. And it just didn't seem to matter because Milwaukee just wasn't capitalizing on it. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I guess Lillard did play in that game. Yeah, Lillard did play. Okay, I was trying to remember if he, but like they both had Lillard and Giannis. But still, it just felt like, just the two words that Milwaukee just couldn't stop, and it was Jimmy Butler. Jimmy, the Bucks killer for like the last, however you want to say,
5 years.
5 or 9 years or wherever. It's just, it's always Jimmy Butler against Milwaukee. Like, Milwaukee just doesn't, they've just never provided an answer for for Jimmy Butler. So I guess, what did you see in Milwaukee's performance against Golden State?
When you look at the box score, you see the Warriors had 18 turnovers, only 20 points in the paint. In the third quarter, they scored 20 points. They had 2 other quarters where they scored 26. It's like you would really think that the Bucks would have dominated. However, the Bucks' second quarter and the fourth quarter, they only scored 17 points. It's like those were the 2 quarters where if you would have just capitalized a little bit, you would have won this game by double digits. They held the Warriors to 26 and under every single quarter outside the first quarter, and they still lost by double digits. Had they just had a decent second and fourth quarter, they had this game in the bag. But I think what really broke them was the 3-point debacle with the Warriors. Just kind of going back, looking, Quentin Post, 4 of 9, Podzinski, 4 of 7, Buddy Hield, 4 of 6. Couple guys chipping in 1, a few 2s, but every time I felt like there was like a slimmer of hope of maybe coming back, they'd get it, 4 or 5, and then they'd immediately give up 2 3-pointers or so, and then it cuts it right back to double digits. So there were so many chances where it's like, oh, they're kind of making a run, and then you blink and then they give it right back up. That's how it felt like the whole game. Both teams played horrible personally. The Bucks just decided to play worse. Kyle Kuzma took 13 3-point attempts out of his 16 shots. Lillard had 18 shots, only shot 33%, 22 from 3. Just a lot of inconsistency. AJ Green went 0 for 2. Gary Trent 1 for 4. Just no consistency throughout it, and it just was one of those games where both teams were playing bad, but the Bucks just decided to one-up them and just not be able to hit any shot. It felt like just a lot of just missed opportunities, wasted possessions. The 9 turnovers, so half of what the Warriors gave up, and you still lost by double digits, just is not a good look, especially without Curry as well. A frustrating game to watch.
It was, and there was some miscues, obviously. AJ Green following Jimmy Butler at the end of the third. You can't have that. Absolutely, positively cannot have that. And, the Bucks challenge, but it's like I don't understand why, because it wasn't foul. He hit him on the arm. So it's just like you can't add these. I believe AJ Green was the one who turned the ball over, and then he's the one who committed the foul. So 2 bad plays there from AJ. You can't. And then, and then if I remember this correctly, I think with like a little under 4 minutes left in the game, Giannis shot like 2 free throws to give him 93. To get 93 points. That was the last time Milwaukee scored in that game. Like, they went 3 minutes scoreless. Like, if I remember the score correctly, it was like, I'm just gonna pull it up right now. See if I can find the Giannis. Yeah, it was. Yeah, Milwaukee was up. Like, see if I can find it. Yeah, Milwaukee was down 96-93 with 4 minutes left in the game.
And they ended with
They did
93
not score
points.
again, and the score ended up being 104-93. So going scoreless for 3 minutes, you can't. And again, there were some bunnies in there that they could have like capitalized on, and they didn't. So it's just that's the frustrating part. Is like sometimes it just feels like this team looks very disjointed offensively. Or it's like if it's not Lillard or Giannis making a play, it's just like, they just can't figure it out. That's the frustrating part. It just feels like sometimes like this team just doesn't. They're not they have offensive firepower. They just don't always use it.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think this team is as good of an offensive team as it maybe was a couple years ago under Coach Budenholzer. But I mean, it's just it's frustrating because I know they have it in them to like be a good offensive team. It's just they don't. It's just
they don't show it.
Exactly. And when you go up against good defensive teams like Golden State, like you have to be able to, Golden State's going to try to muck the game up. So it's like, what are you going to do? And go and score us against 3 minutes against Golden State, you're not going to win that. And Golden State, especially in their 2 games against Milwaukee this year, they've looked like really dominant. Like Milwaukee, for as inconsistent as Golden State had been, Milwaukee just doesn't look like they're in the same stratosphere. So, I mean, it's a frustrating game because you knew Milwaukee had a chance without Curry being in there, but when you give up wide open threes, when you let guys like Quentin Post hit 5 of 9,
Mm-hmm.
what do you expect? What do you expect to happen?
Just obviously texting with people about that game. It's one of those things where I feel like they've done this so many times too with the amount of losses they had where they had it. Like the game against the Celtics a couple months ago where it's 3 to 7 point game the whole time, and then all of a sudden the end of the fourth quarter they just decide to just give it all up. And can never come back from either tying it up and taking the lead or just being able to consistently be down a little bit before trying to make some sort of push, but it just never seems to happen sometimes. When they physically had that game right wrapped around their finger based off how they were holding the Warriors.
So, luckily, Milwaukee
Little bounce back game.
Milwaukee redeemed itself. Now, here's the thing: I'm not gonna sit here and give Milwaukee a ticker tape parade for beating the G League Lakers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not gonna do that because Lakers was missing. We're missing everybody plus the athletic trainer in this next matchup. Okay, what? I'm just gonna as soon. I obviously didn't watch the game the other night because, it's a West Coast trip and I was in bed by then. But, what'd they win? 117-89?
118-89, yep.
118-89. Okay. I'm sorry. When you get players, I'll read off the list of who the Lakers were missing. LeBron, Luka, Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura. Who else? I feel like there's some.
Maxi Kleber was out too.
Well, he had foot surgery, but yeah, they were basically missing everybody. So when you see players like Jordan Goodwin and Gabe Vincent, and Jackson Hayes as part of your starting lineup, I'm like, well, yeah, easily Milwaukee should win that game. And when you see Bronny James receive significant minutes, they definitely should win that game. Which, by the way, a quick side note. Bronny James actually had his career high against the Bucks.
Yeah, of course he did. He actually shot very well.
He had 17 points. I mean, no, in all seriousness, like, I know people gave, when I say people, I mean Stephen A. Smith. They gave Bronny a lot of hate that, oh my God, Bronny can't play in the league, blah, blah, blah. But, he's looking a little more comfortable. I've
Hmm.
seen some flashes here. Okay, look, I understand people are going to say it's like, oh, of course Bronny got 17 against the Bucks. But, that wasn't an easy thing for him. I mean, for as much hate as he got, I am kind of happy with the fact that Bronny got 17. Because there's been everybody this year, everybody's criticized LeBron this year, saying why you're giving your son a job, like Bronny's not an NBA player, but he looked comfortable out there. He made a couple of good defensive plays. And look, and the Bucks are missing, and they weren't missing as much as the Lakers were, but Damian Lillard, he missed his one of 2 games due to a soleus strain. Ryan Rollins started, and I got reminded why I love Ryan Rollins. He's just a scrappy-ass player. He can, he makes good defensive plays. He can steal the ball. He gets into guys. And I do come to appreciate that, which is I'm kind of questioning why. I'm not saying Ryan Rollins should be playing over KPJ. I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying, like, I'm still confused why Ajax was the one that lost minutes.
Hmm.
Because I just think that it's really key that you get defenders out there, right, who can muck a game up, right, who can immediately come off the bench and just be an energizer bunny. And I think that's what guys like Rollins and Jackson could provide. So I'm just kind of curious as to why they lost their minutes. More so questioning for Ajax more than Ryan Rollins. But again, I just think that, even if you stick those guys out there for 7-8 minutes, just to kind of muck a game up a little bit and, provide energy, provide, a defensive spark, so to speak. Like that'd be my question. So I guess what did you see in Milwaukee's performance against LA?
I think just them being able to, again, this was one of those games, kind of like with the Kings game. It was when you see the top 2 guys being out, it's like, are they going to destroy them or are they going to make it a close game or lose? And obviously we see how the outcome was. But besides some of the shooting from some of the guys, I think the biggest was Gary Trent with 23, 6 3-pointers, I think was their biggest contribution, obviously outside of Giannis, with 28. But when you look back at the box score, you had a couple guys scoring 20 plus points. Kyle Kuzma, not doing well with the 3-point shots as of late, but I think just the equal contribution and not having Giannis take over and score 40, 50 points and being able to have multiple guys score roughly around the same, I think helps out a lot. And obviously when you, like you said, with the starting lineup of some of the guys I've never heard of in my life, playing against them, it's one of those things where you didn't really need Giannis to take over when you have plenty of guys who are able to defend and score against Jordan Goodwin, Gabe Vincent, Shake Milton, even Jackson Hayes too, who didn't do bad, but still you're going to have Jackson Hayes probably score more, Giannis score more. So one of those things where they did exactly what they need to do. And some of the guys who not necessarily had a good game were still able to have others contribute to kind of make up, like AJ Green and Kevin Porter Jr. I wouldn't really say Ryan Rounds. He just didn't have he shot a lot that game, which is kind of made sense based off of who he was playing against, but just one of those where I fell asleep even halfway through the game because it was, again, so late. But being able to see Pete Nance come in and finally make his Bucks debut with 2 points and some of those bench guys as well being able to play near the end. But I think overall they just did what they were supposed to do, and I'm glad they were able to get a 30-plus point lead and not make it a game throughout that whole time and finally pull away at the end.
Yeah, and again, I think for the Lakers, they're going to make the playoffs. I think it is key for them to rest some of their veteran guys. LeBron especially, I believe LeBron just had his first game back the other night. Luka, you want him to be healthy. I mean, it's just important, to kind of load manage these guys, so to speak, because, this point in the season, a lot of guys are going through nicks and dings, and they're going through a lot of injuries that may not necessarily be as serious, but you just want to make sure everybody's well rested heading into the postseason. So I think that's kind of what the Lakers did, where it's like, you know, we're not getting anything out of this game. I mean, we could give Milwaukee kind of a free win here. So, I think that's kind of what happened. This 118-89 win. Really, just not much to say. You would hope Milwaukee would win
Yeah.
a game like this against the G League Lakers. So, moving on to the next game. Now, this game is a lot more tighter. Only because Sacramento was only missing Malik Monk, but they still had DeMar and Zach LaVine, and you kind of forget that since their days in Chicago, these two are lethal offensive weapons. Milwaukee luckily was able to pull it out with a 114-108 win, but it was close. It was close throughout, but I just think Milwaukee just kind of made more plays at the end. There was just some interesting 2-minute offense, I believe, from the Kings. They had Trey Lyles take some of their big shots, which no disrespect to Trey Lyles. He's been a successful NBA player and he's a good player, but like if Trey Lyles is your go-to guy, like at the end of games, it's like, well, what is your offensive strategy? So, I guess what did you see in Milwaukee's performance against Sacramento?
Well, I saw with Sabonis being out and Malik Monk being out, I'm like, okay, there's obviously they still have DeRozan and Levine, so I'm like, hopefully they're able to kind of pull ahead of this, but I just felt like they were trying to creep up the entire game until they finally came back late in the third and then into the fourth quarter, being down 14 at one point. But yeah, they had a huge third quarter and was able to kind of close them out in the fourth, only giving up 19 points. But I think the big thing was Kevin Porter Jr. I think like him in the fourth quarter just sparked something because I feel like every time they bring him out, he always pulls them back, kind of with that Nuggets game. I think right after the All-Star break, if I'm not mistaken, or right before. We shot 8 of 10 and 2 of 2 from 3, 18 points, a good chunk of them coming into the fourth quarter, but a lot of good defensive plays I felt like led to making a run on offense, just being able to force up bad shots. And finally starting to hit some shots too. A couple late threes by Gary Trent and Taurean Prince, even though they were kind of giving. It was one of those 1-point games where leads were going back and forth, but they finally had a run where they made like 2 3-pointers in 2 possessions where they could finally have that leniency of not having to or being up more than one possession. So it really came down to the wire, just again being down double digits late in the game and not really having a hope, kind of similar to that Golden State Warriors game. But Kevin Porter Jr. and Gary Trent really stepped up at the end and were able to hit the shots that they needed to, even though Gary Trent didn't really shoot all that well. The ones that he did make were the ones that had a huge contribution at the end of the game, especially being able to put them up and kind of hit more of a dagger shot to give the Bucks again a little more of a footstep up in their closing out of the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and again, that's why Gary Trent Jr. was signed in the offseason, was because this is a guy who's throughout his career has been able to hit timely shots, right? He's kind of served that role for Milwaukee this year when it hasn't been Dame or it hasn't been Giannis. Gary Trent's been doing a great job. He's been hitting timely shots, and he hit 2, as you mentioned before, last night against the Kings to kind of seal that win. And they needed it too because the Kings are geared up to stop Giannis. So you just needed somebody to hit from the outside. And, and as good of a shooter as Gary Trent Jr. is, I think he's a lot better of a defender. Like he could defend the crap out of he could defend the crap out of the player out of the basketball or whatever you want to call it. I can't get the word out right now, but you know what I mean. Like he's one of those guys who can really defend at a high level. And again, he hit 2 timely shots, and that's what Milwaukee needed to help seal the game because, you know, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan. I mean, they were kind of no-shows, kind of at the end of this game, but you know, DeMar DeRozan was DeMar DeRozan. Like this is a guy who's, you know, operates very well within the mid-range, kind of the same as Zach LaVine, just very, very good mid-range players. And you just kind of saw that, you know, this is kind of why those 2 players have been, you know, very successful throughout their careers because, you know, they can hit those shots at a high clip. So, although the one confusing part I did have a question about is, you know, with, you know, Sabonis being out, I'm just kind of confused with the spacing for the Sacramento Kings because so Jonas Valanciunas is the guy in the middle, and they have Sabonis. I don't know. I mean, does that kind of mess up the spacing just a little bit? Like who? Like how does that? Like I didn't even know. I forgot Jonas Valanciunas got traded to the Kings, and now that he's on the team, I'm just like, what? So you got a guy who can shoot a little bit from the outside, but then you have Jonas Valanciunas. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of weird to have like 2 immobile bigs
out there at once.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. Now, I don't want to disrespect Valanciunas to say, like, oh, he can't shoot because, trust me, he hit a couple of 15-footers the other night. I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot. Choo-Choo Valanciunas can shoot. Like, he can – like, the man can shoot a little bit. Yeah, because I'm looking at it. Let's see. DeMar 22, 8 of 18, 16. Keon Ellis though, like Keon Ellis hit a few shots from 3, and there were times where I forgot they forgot to guard him.
I did too. He was bothering me the whole game.
Oh my god.
Felt like he couldn't miss.
Oh yeah. And people forget about this name, former #1 overall pick, Markelle Fultz.
Markelle Fultz. 1
0
offensive
points,
rebound.
8 minutes, you know, making a big impact on the game. Another player, you know, former Bucks on here, Jay Crowder, didn't play, but, you know, let's see. I mean, weren't. I mean, like as you mentioned before, Gary Trent, 4 of 11 points. Kevin Porter Jr., 18 points, 8 of 10 shooting. Like Kevin Porter Jr. has really been a godsend since coming over from LA. I just think he's been a very impactful player coming off the bench. And you know, once Bobby Portis and Sims comes back, then it's just like, I just think this bench could get a lot more lethal. But you know, right now we're in a kind of a tough transition because Sims is out, Bobby Portis is suspended, and AJ Green's been going through a bit of a shooting slump. So it's just really, really tough for the Milwaukee's bench to be as lethal as we want it to be, just because of like, you know, it's just been, you know, just really kind of, it's really been kind of hard just to find points coming from, you know, that area. And, you know, as I've talked about before, bench is as important as the starters heading into the postseason. So Milwaukee's bench has to start stepping up a little bit more, especially when those postseason games start, because they're going to need them. So moving on, let's see. So Jericho Sims has a fractured thumb. He's going to miss about 4 to 6 weeks, which I believe the timeline would be heading into the postseason.
Yeah, I think they said he'd be ready just about for the playoffs.
Yeah. So right now, right now as we stand today, how has his absence impacted Milwaukee?
Well, it sucks because, again, we had just been talking high praise of him recently, again, with his ability to rebound. Again, he's one of those guys who's getting 6 to 8 rebounds off the bench. Someone to fill Bobby's absence as he's been suspended. And then to see him go down like that always sucks, just because as soon as he was starting to feel more of his role and kind of fit in a lot better, he goes down. Um, but again, losing that rebounding capability, you really don't have a lot of guys who are getting rebounds outside of Giannis. Kuzma's been kind of holding it down as well. He had 14 last night as well. But besides um, Giannis and like they had 42 rebounds last night, and um, Kuzma and Giannis had 31 of them combined, 17 and 14, if my math's correct. Um, but there's just a lack of rebounding outside of those two guys, so it's kind of hard to lose that spot in your bench and kind of putting it on two other guys to hold up for it. But obviously, it's not like a huge hit, but it definitely was just kind of knowing what he was able to eventually start doing off of the bench. Once he found his role a lot more. It does suck though. I'm just glad it wasn't too severe that he should be back in time to hopefully come off the bench at the end of the season, leading into the playoffs.
Yeah, it does suck because I feel like as far as recent memory, this is probably the worst rebounding team I've ever seen out of the Bucks. Like this team physically, outside of Brook Lopez and outside of Giannis, there are other guys in the floor who I just feel like don't exert themselves that much to just grab a rebound. And I just feel like rebounding should be a team effort, not just have it come down to like two or three guys. And I just feel like that's kind of what it comes down to, where it's just like balls in the air, but like nobody hustles, nobody like goes after the ball, and it just feels like it's always the same guys grabbing rebounds, which can be frustrating. Especially like when you see a team grab like two or three extra possessions, like those matter. Like those extra possessions matter. And, that's kind of part of the reason why Milwaukee hasn't beaten the top teams in the Eastern Conference is because, like, rebounding, I think, is the number one thing you have to do to win a basketball game. And when you keep giving up extra possessions, especially to those good teams, you're not going to win. And, as we mentioned before, this is why Milwaukee's winless against New York, Boston, and Cleveland because they have, like, longer guys. They have a bigger front court. So they've kind of been able to grab those extra possessions, and that's mattered in those particular games, and that's why Milwaukee has kind of looked outmatched against those three teams. Like that stuff, like it matters. And Jericho Sims has kind of helped with that. Like he's helped with, just kind of being that extra rebounder. Being able to block shots, being able to defend like all five guys. Like being a mobile big. So it sucked that he hasn't been out there. But, I think once you get BP and once you get Jericho Sims back, I think, like I said, I think this bench is going to be a lot better. But it is also going to depend on how BP plays in the playoffs because there are times where Bobby Portis just hasn't been playable in the postseason.
And then coming back from not playing for 25 games.
Yeah, so it's going to be a little bit. Like, I think he's going to be back in the rotation, but, like, it's going to take him – like, he's going to be really rusty, I think, coming back. Like, he's got to get what we like to call his sea legs under him. Like, he's got to get his sea legs under him so that, he can go back to being the Bobby Portis of old. And I do think, like, once he comes back, he's going to be, like, try to do too much. Maybe he's going to try to find his shot and all this other stuff. And, once it's the postseason, it's like, dude, if you're taking bad shots, you're not going to play. Like you're just not. So you have to find other ways to impact a game other than just scoring. Because trust me, scoring is not the only thing in the postseason. You gotta be able to defend. You gotta be able to switch. You gotta be able to rebound. You gotta be able to do all those things. Have all those key elements in order for you to not see your minutes decrease. Because trust me, as the postseason goes on, those rotations get a lot shorter.
Yep.
You may maybe go from like 8 or 9 guys to maybe 7. So you really got to make an impact. Final topic on the pod. I saw Brandon Jennings, this week. You know what happens? You know what happens, Evan. People get on these podcasts. They start, doing some introspective on their career. In case you missed it, I think the video would be better than me just talking about it, so I'm gonna try to search up the video.
I love Brandon Jennings, but he's like one of those guys where he's just trying to stay relevant.
And
he
again,
always pops up at the most randomest spots too.
I know. Look, I love Brandon Jennings. Do not get me wrong, but it's like, dude, why would you?
Why are you here?
Like, well, not that, but it's like, why? And I get it. You know, you get on Gil's Arena and you're just like, you're just trying to. I get it. You're trying to get some clicks. I get it. I get that. I respect it. Oh, so I can't. Hang on. No, hang on. Let me see if I can. Let's see if I can log in a different way. Let's. Here we go.
Last year when I went to the playoff game and he was just randomly doing like a meet and greet up on the top level, just no publicity about it. Just hey, it's Brandon Jennings. Come take a picture with him. Cool.
It's not a good look. All right, here's the clip.
And he's just like, said Ty Lawson. That's a name I haven't heard in a fat minute.
I mean, if you want to talk about Ty Lawson, that could be a conversation. I will surmise that. But really, we gotta stop talking about the 55-point game as if like I mean, look, as a rookie, okay, that was good, but that was his one career highlight. Okay, there was nothing else Brandon Jennings did in the game of basketball that was better than Jrue Holiday. I'm sorry, but like if you can only point to one 55-point game as a rookie in like 2009, what else did you do? You helped lead Milwaukee to playoff appearances, one of which arguably probably should have gotten in. Okay, should have gotten in, but like, you're sitting here being like, and I pulled this clip up too. You're sitting here being like, Jrue Holiday's never been better than me, or Jeff Teague's not better than me, dude. Do you not realize? And I actually, luckily, because I have the memory of an elephant, there's 2 games, Brandon Jennings, where you're getting cooked by Nate Robinson. So it's just like, you cannot sit here and tell me that, oh, Jrue Holiday's never better than me. Oh, you were getting cooked by a point guard who, it was like a car wash. He was jumping through different teams year after year after year. You cannot sit here and tell me that, oh, Jrue Holiday's never been better than me. Oh, like, Jrue Holiday's career is still going. Yours ended after 9 years. Okay? And if we're being honest here, your career probably more or less ended after 6.
Once he left the Bucks.
What did you do? You never made it out of the first round. Okay? Your defense was a joke. We watched that 2013 Milwaukee Bucks team. It was just you and Monte Ellis that was scoring the crap out of the basketball. But you didn't win anything. Bucks at 6. You said that before a series against the Miami Heat. Like you personally put a target on your own back by thinking, "Oh, I can see the Bucks winning the series in 6 games." In what universe, what planet was that ever going to happen? Now it's funny. It's funny to joke about now because Milwaukee did actually win a series in 6 games. Okay, they winning an NBA Finals in 6 games, but like we're not saying that because like there were it's so delusional. It's dumb because like it ended after 9 years. Jrue Holiday's career is still going, arguably a Hall of Famer. Like Jrue Holiday, like his moments were a lot more like vast than yours.
Yeah.
Okay?
Hot take. Jrue Holiday's first year on the Bucks is better than Brandon Jennings' entirety on the Bucks. Hot take.
It's true. No, it's 100% true. You never made it out of the first round, Brandon Jennings. Now, if we want to talk about scoring, sure, that could be an argument. But a better player, like Jrue Holiday is a better player than you are. Like, it's not even a discussion. Like Gilbert Arenas is yelling about the 55-point game, but what else did he do? Like, honestly, what else did he do other than like and look, we appreciate the 50, but it was a meaningless regular season game in November. Like what Brandon James can't talk about is playoff success because we lost to the Hawks in 6. We made the playoffs again with the losing record against the first seeded Miami Heat. Got traded to Detroit later that year. Blood his Achilles, basically where his career ended because he had less burst. I mean, really, the only thing Brandon Jennings is known for is the 55-point game and then having like 20 different hairstyles during his rookie year. Like what?
It was really just his rookie year.
That's really what it is. I mean, God forbid he could play. Like Brandon Jennings was a very exciting player to watch, but I mean, God forbid, man, we gotta stop thinking like. Yeah, 55 as a rookie is great. Do not get me wrong. But what you got to ask yourself is, will Brandon Jennings have his Brandon Jennings have his number retired? No. Will he make it to the Bucks Hall of Fame? No. That's it. I mean, sure. What Brandon Jennings is going to be known for is like being like the team mascot for the
finals.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, his claim to fame is the fact that we actually like him better than Kareem because Kareem's kind of a scumbag who just wanted to leave Milwaukee, then came back and acted like he wanted to, and acted like, oh my God, I've embraced the city of Milwaukee. But I mean, as you mentioned before, Brandon Jennings doing a meet and greet, like in the top level.
It was so random. I'm like, that was Brandon Jennings. How do I meet him? Just stand in line. I'm like, okay.
Okay, that's when you know you're trying to remain relevant. Like, no other players doing that. Like, who's doing that? Who? Like, hey, get a Brandon Jennings autograph. Like, who is waiting for that? Look, I give Brandon Jennings a lot of credit because he ushered in a time in Milwaukee in which, Milwaukee largely sucked at basketball, and he led us to a good playoff appearance. Played under a tough coach, Scott Skiles. You give him credit for all that. But I'm not going to sit here and be like, he's better than Jeff Teague and he's better than Brandon Jennings or better than, and again, and here's the other thing too. This is such a retired player's thing because this is the shit that you say when you try to remain relevant, right? This is the shit that you say when like, hey, nobody's talking about me. I'm going to generate some headlines and, I'm just going to sit here and just try to like, I'm gonna go on Gilbert Arenas' podcast and just try to shit on like players who played like 8 or 9 years ago. It really does not matter. Truly, it really does not matter because it's a no-win argument. Who cares? This looks bitter on his part, to be quite honest with you. Like, this is, like, again, I'm all for former players, like, having podcasts and all this stuff, but sometimes this is just what it devolves into.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I didn't win anything on my team, but here, I played like 8 years ago, so I'm just going to generate some headlines just so that people will talk about me, which is exactly what we're doing right now. Like, it's a topic because he made it a topic. Like, look, I have all the respect in the world for Brandon Jennings, but don't sit here and be like, Jrue Holiday's a... Dude, he played on the same team you played for. And he fucking cleared your ass by, like, 7 or 8 years. Like Jrue Holiday has always been an impactful player in ways that we can't say the same thing about Brandon Jennings. Nobody was sitting here being like, Jrue Holiday's played his role really well. Okay, but he's also like a really, really good player. And he still continues to be a good player. And I miss the hell out of Jrue Holiday. But, if I had to make that trade over again, I probably would. But if you want to talk, if we're talking like high school, then what are we doing? What are we doing? Now we're talking about high school. Who was a better player in high school? You both played in the NBA. Like, that does not matter anymore.
Yeah, they were in the same draft class.
Like, that does not matter anymore. Who was a better player in high school? Truly. Who cares? Brandon Jennings played for one of the most prestigious high schools in, like, ever. No kill. But it truly does not matter who was a better player in high school. It truly does not matter who was a better player in the NBA. You both made it. Like, your career is your career. His career is his career. Like, these arguments are dumb. Okay? They truly are. You both made it to the NBA. You both made it to a level in which there's not many people in the world that said they could do it. There's only about 400, a little over 400 NBA players. Okay? There's truly not that many players in the world, or not that many people in the world who said, I can make it to the NBA. It's a hard job. You have to be really talented at what you do. You have to work extremely hard at what you do. Like, it does not matter who is better than whom. It truly doesn't. It truly doesn't. Whether Brandon Jennings was better than Jrue Holiday, that's irrelevant. Because at the end of the day, you both made it to the NBA. These arguments are stupid. Okay? Like, not everybody's going to make it to the Hall of Fame. But everybody who makes it to the Hall of Fame is talented. Or everybody who makes it in the NBA is extremely talented. So, stop it. Can we just not do these stupid-ass arguments anymore?
We did get a comment as you were talking.
What was it?
Brandon is okay, but he ain't Jrue.
He's not. He's really not. Like that honestly. And again, I'm not trying to be one of those people that craps on a former player but when you crap on Jrue Holiday, a guy who helped
the guy who brought us the championship. Yep.
No, the gloves are coming off. No, the gloves are coming off. Because let me tell you something. Jrue Holiday actually, Jrue Holiday, Milwaukee needed Jrue Holiday to win that championship. Truly. Think about it. Milwaukee drafted Brandon Jennings. But Jrue Holiday was a centerpiece to Milwaukee. Milwaukee was a good team. Jrue Holiday made him elite in those first 2 or 3 years. So, no, he's not anywhere close to Jrue Holiday. Not even close. So, Evan, you got anything else?
I don't. I know we played the Suns next, slowly wrapping up the West Coast trip. Monday and Wednesday. Suns Monday, Nuggets Wednesday, and then Friday against the Knicks, Sunday against the Hawks. So 4 games this week. Closing up.
Yes, we are.
Last game's April 13th, so we're getting close.
Yes, we are. Yep, we are extremely excited about it. So, all right. Thank you guys for tuning in to this edition of the Milwaukee Bucks at Tap podcast, and we'll see you guys next week.